Want to raise your chess to a new level? Challenge Yourself is an exclusive, innovative experience designed for Chess24 Premium members. Train like a champ, with a unique set of lessons prepared by the coaches of the challengers. Boris Girlfriend and Co. will help you improve your chess. Play versus a champ. Play a grandmaster each day in Banter Blitz. Take advantage of this incredible opportunity from June 10th. Go premium and challenge yourself.
Take your chess to the next level with carefully selected collections featuring some of the best video series from Chess24. Buy the courses to own them forever, save up to 60%, or go premium and access all series while having all other privileges of premium membership. Learn more at chess24.com/deals.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Banter session. I did something stupid, which I will now correct, and we'll get to playing. Lots of things happening in chess in general this summer. The Zagreb GCT rapid portion just finished a second ago. Lots of extremely exciting games. If you haven't seen the finish to that absolutely insane Fun for a Snomidarov game, make sure to check it out. And yes, some mistakes have crept in towards the end, but playing positions like the one they got on 10-second increment for the last, I guess, 30 moves is not easy. So got some slack to the players, and the very very final acts of that game are absolutely stunning. And of course, Gary will start playing from tomorrow, which is going to be extremely exciting to watch, obviously, because whenever he plays, I think very understandably he attracts a lot of attention, and that's exactly how things should be, I think. Anyway, let's start playing, and we'll see what other topics will come up. starting with the black pieces today, which is good. I sometimes feel like I only get the white pieces, or extremely imbalanced in favor of getting a lot of whites and not a lot of blacks. It's good to have a closer balance there. Not sure if I keep on doing these days against queen takes d4. I appear to be defaulting to these structures, which are not really structures I particularly well understand or even like, honestly. But we are here now, so what to do? This idea of playing queen b6 in these types of positions is it might look a bit non-standard, but if white actually takes, it gives me additional files to create counterplay on, so it's not really that much of a problem. I quite like what my opponent is doing here, not committing at all to any any kind of trading on the queen side just yet, and just quietly planning to put the bishop on b2 where it definitely belongs. And yeah, as I said, I'm really not a very good Maratsi player. I probably should stop doing this to myself. And learn how to not get to play this structure all the time. This might be just completely tactically incorrect, but I'm sort of throwing it out there. The big I mean, the simplest reply from the white side here would be to take. Yeah, exactly, to take and to play g5 in the final position. Getting the pawn from h3 to g5 is, I assume, should be quite good for white. The one good thing about this trade is that I traded the knight on c3 for the knight on f6, leaving white with the knight on f3, which is by far the worst one of the two knights white has here. I'm not sure I like what my opponent is doing here. As in, I don't think it's great because, yeah, now your knight gets sidelined to the h3 square. I get to occupy a very nice d4 porch for my light pieces. I think my position improved. When is part 2 coming out? I don't know. It's probably going to be quite huge. Kramnik student, yeah, because it's supposed to cover an unbelievable amount of material, because it's being a lifetime repertoire. We're basically covering everything that is not 1e4. Luckily for me, Chessable has, you know, graciously allowed me not to cover 1e4 in my Grunfeld lifetime repertoire. Everything else pretty much will end up getting covered. And yeah, as you can imagine, this is quite a lot of stuff. I'm making some slow progress here. I don't know if this is all that great, but I am making some progress. Can you go easy on me so I can last around 30 moves? I cannot promise you I will play you, Levane Show 2. I think the bigger issue with your plan is that I cannot give you a bloodsworn promise that you will get a game, because I'm not very good at scrolling through lists of names. I don't know why I played Rook A2. I kind of don't want... I mean, I sort of know why I played Rook A2. It's a kind of a cheapo... One of the reasons why I call it a cheapo you now see on the board. I was kind of trying to prompt my opponent to move the knight away from f2 so that I can pick up the e4 pawn. But yeah, it does result in his knight becoming quite a lot more active than it was prior. And I will have to deal with that somehow. Yeah, that's a very, very strange resignation. In this final position, white can play knight c6, and I'm not sure I'm even doing that great. So yeah, you definitely have to continue here. Yeah, it's all on the old play zone, Krishnan. Was it possible to trade b6 and knight a4? I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, but black can play knight d7 in reply. I don't think it's the end of the world. But as I said, I'm not a huge specialist on these lines. Definitely not. How much did the Russian chess school change from Soviet times? Uh, the personnel is actually quite similar still. A lot of people who were coaches when I was coming up through the ranks uh, still coach actually. Uh, and the structure is very similar. It's just that they are not called pioneers houses anymore, obviously. You're welcome, Eric. You played well, and you really only started going somewhat wrong towards the very end. So structurally, I think it looks very similar to how it looked in my youth, with the obvious, renaming issues. After knight b6, and yeah, I got you, Pramila. Yeah, maybe that was quite strong actually. I had a feeling what I was doing wasn't really great, but I couldn't stop myself anymore. I was just kind of committed. What's my favorite Sicilian? I began life as a Najdorf player with both colors. I used to play a lot of Najdorf uh, with white and black. Let's say in the mid '90s, I was definitely a Najdorf player. And then I became, a Paulsen, Taimanov kind of a this complex of Sicilians. I played a lot of that as well at some point. I think I told this story on air more than once, but the reason why I at some point became a player of those lines is kind of curious. Um, I used to play a lot of a lot of games against Sergei Rublevsky, who is now coaching the Russian ladies team. But he used to be a very strong song player in his own right, of course, and he played those not Schwingans, the Paulsons against me uh, constantly, time and time again. And the more I prepared uh, against him, the more I thought, I don't like this from white. I would like to play all of these positions with black. And eventually, I just thought, I keep on thinking this. Maybe I should stop thinking this and actually start putting this idea in motion. And I learned by preparing against somebody who was playing that opening against me all the time. Are all grandmasters professionals? It's just their primary job. Vast majority, I think, yes. Not all, but pretty sure that a very large majority will be considered professionals. We're playing this kind of a very very slow Najdorf slash. Maybe some, as you can see, there are definitely some similarities to perhaps the Sveshnikov structures. I was very surprised when my opponent played knight b3, 5 on move 6, but it's not horrible. I'm kind of grudgingly beginning to respect that choice, even if at the time I thought it was a bit soft. Let's put it like this. Yeah, Vladimir Kramnik is recording something for Chessable on the topic. Not an opening course. I don't think he would be interested in recording an opening course. I'm doing something very speculative here. I actually don't think I will be worse after this exchange sacrifice, but I'm also not really better. But I was kind of a bit bereft of ideas, and I wanted to try something. I think it's a decent practical decision because it's definitely easier to play positions like this with white than it is with black. But um, yeah, I don't think it gives white any kind of advantage. But yeah, the dominance on the light squares is such that you definitely have enough compensation for the exchange. I will play anything that is not bullet, Colgate, but I do prefer 3 to 5 and 3 with a slight increment to just pure 3. But I'm okay with pure 3 for banter purposes. 5 is a little bit too slow, and bullet I'm just completely horrible at. Even though, I will play bullet if I have to play bullet, but in terms of the format for these banter shows, nobody is contractually obliging me to play bullet, so I am making a choice of not not playing bullet if I don't have to. Thank you, Beto, and you actually, I think even your final position isn't that bad. It's just that you played a little bit too slowly. Uh, I have accounts everywhere. Soren Frahorsens, uh, because you do. I think most chess players will have accounts everywhere, but yeah, seems like this one isn't starting. So let's look for a different one. I play and I stream titles quite a lot. I do things on Lichess as well, but Just 24 is, where it all started for me. I wasn't, one of the founders, not by any stretch, but I was one of the earliest people the founders contacted, and I still have a very, very soft spot for Chess 24. Yeah, I stream on Twitch, yeah, of course. Called you. Uh, and I am now also doing some things for Kasparov Chess. I wish I could remember. Like, this used to be. The funny thing is, I used to play this line with black more than I used to play it with white. I think if you want to play h5, and I actually quite like playing h5 in these types of positions, it makes a lot of sense to first play h7, h6, drive the bishop away to e3, and then play h5, because the bishop often will return to g5 anyway, and by doing that you make white lose a reasonably important tempo. Can I not take that? I think I can take that. I don't think I need to be worried about opening of the b file, and it's just a healthy pawn. Is it not a bit frustrating to peak your performance at the age of 20 to 25 and then either hold or slowly deteriorate for the rest of of your life? That's not exactly what happened in my case. I had some very, very good years between, I don't know, 20 and 25, and then I had some absolutely wonderful years past the age of 30. So I I don't know if that adequately describes um, everybody, or even honestly anybody necessarily. It, I mean, it's a kind of an understandable assumption, but I don't know if it's necessarily true. Uh, no, I'm not. Don't apologize. It's a perfectly legitimate question. And I'm not upset. I am just answering it by giving you, the example I am familiar with the most, which is myself. Your best year was 2016 when we talked outside the Kingside Diner. If you say so. My best year, really, if we talk about best years, my best years were 97 and 2011, which is 21 and 35 years of age. Quite different. I think I can take on e7 here with a very large advantage. Yeah, this always it's been talked about 960 guy for a very very long time, and we keep on missing each other. It's like life has become so weird in the COVID times. There should be some kind of mate here. I'm very tempted to just like start sacrificing pieces left and right in an attempt to give mate, but I can also just like collect a lot of material here boringly. Do I think I could go pro in Hearthstone? Definitely not. No, I don't have the probably the skill set as well, but I also definitely do not have the stamina or the honestly even the desire to grind. I don't think you can become very successful at Hearthstone without being ready to grind properly to get the reps in to understand the meta. And for me, I enjoy the game, but I'm not going to turn it into a job. Uh, for me, definitely the Grunfeld. Yup. I tried becoming a um, I tried becoming a King's Indian player, and I failed utterly. That opening just does not agree with me at all. And the Grunfeld always felt like home kind of thing. But once again, this is entirely subjective and probably doesn't correspond to other people's experiences. I don't want to, commit to the definitive statement, this player will definitely win, but I think Magnus is a favorite. Yeah, Kravnik disagreeing with the King's Indian is, I mean, Kravnik is an incredibly good, very, very classical player, and the King's Indian isn't. So I don't think it's a huge surprise that he doesn't approve. And he also, I think, was throughout his career extremely, extremely good at beating it. Hmm, that's a decent move. I mean, I it's not like I had much better options, so I'm not necessarily very unhappy about how things are going, but it's a good move. Kramnik anecdote not known to many. It's very difficult. Like it's one of those types of things which is like when people approach you and they tell you, Peter, now tell a joke, and you're just sitting there thinking, like, how do I tell a joke without it, being without there being some kind of a prompt? Um, Jokes don't, at least in my life, jokes don't just kind of happen without the conversation leading up to it. You can't just randomly start telling jokes, or I mean you can, and people make a job out of it, but I'm not one of those people. I'm kind of being outplayed here, which is a bit annoying, honestly. I really really dislike how this game has gone so far. We need Kramnik's Twitter account to be active again. We definitely do not. We absolutely do not Kramnik Twitter's account to be active again. Do not need, I mean. That is one thing the world can definitely live without. Hmm. I'm trying to, introduce some kind of mayhem in the center, but I think I'm much worse. And this is a very reasonable reply as well, but I do get to take on d4 here, and the knight on g3 is hanging, so at least white now has some issues. I might be doing okay suddenly. I definitely wasn't doing okay even maybe 5 moves ago, but this is suddenly a very, very nice position, which I should try not to spoil. Yeah, suddenly the queen is actually gone because queen c2 runs into knight a3 check. Is bishop g4 supposed to be bad in Spanish? It's a very, very general statement, Sakshamora. There are some positions in which I personally have um, spoken about the bishop on g4 being somewhat misplaced, but as with most of these, extremely, extremely general statements, they will be true sometimes and less true in some other times. I think, one decent rule of thumb for this would be if white already played g2, g4, and your move bishop g4 helps you increase pressure on the white center, it very often becomes quite decent. And if the white pawn is still on d2, or perhaps is on d3, and your bishop g4 move doesn't really put any kind of pressure on the white center, it just, is standing there, then it probably isn't a great choice. Yeah, I'm no longer being outplayed. Yeah, this went kind of off the rails for my opponent starting from roundabout move 15. You're welcome, Krishnan. Let's see if I can actually. Whoa, okay, I was going to say, let's see if I can actually show some of that top notch Grunfeld preparation I've done recently. I don't know why I took on d4. That was not, strictly speaking, necessary. It's a very nice position for black, but I definitely could have played it sharper. Yeah, there's probably a way to play against the stone wall, uh, which is more ambitious than what I'm doing here. But I'm still doing perfectly fine. I don't think you should be taking on f5 there in my opponent's spot, because now I have this. I mean, I would have control over the e4 pawn, over the e4 square anyway, but now it's kind of permanent. I've played some new things, Haggis McBin, but my main game remains Hearthstone for now. I think I should probably take with the pawn here just to not have to worry about the d5 pawn, although I don't think there was much wrong with rook takes c6 either. The big question with this structure will be, how do I make any kind of progress? When do you leave for Sochi? My flight is on Tuesday. Yeah, normally I think the World Cup is your um, uh, your approach is you want to get to the spot where you can qualify for the candidates, and once that is completed, you start thinking about winning the whole thing. They kind of go hand in hand, but um, for me, qualifying for the candidates perhaps was maybe even more important than, uh, or at least I always began by thinking much more about the qualification rather than the win in the World Cup. There's a little bit too much of you completely hopeless, and you're not really making too much sense. So um, maybe pipe down a little bit. I do have a sword, you know? Yeah, I wish I had the repertoire against the Alapin. I think I pretty much every single time end up going for this and then not enjoying it even remotely, which is a bit annoying. Greetings to you as well, Medgar. Yeah, this is somebody who clearly knows theory because people who perhaps aren't very aware of what's going on in this line tend to take on d6 here, which gives black a much easier game. When in fact you can and should just completely ignore my counterplay against the e5 pawn and go for knight g5 type ideas, which are unbelievably dangerous here. Do you like Levit of Chess Channel? Yeah, I think Ilya is doing a lot of very, very good work on the Levit of Chess Channel. I think it's very, very promising what they're doing. Both their sort of pure chess content and also the sort of around chess content that they do. Here, the issue was I was kind of planning to go knight f6, and now I realize bishop b5 check more or less wins, which is a little bit upsetting. I have a feeling I had this position against Evgeny Alexeyev in one of the World Blitzes. I somehow survived that game even, but um, yeah, these positions are very, very much, they're very unfun. It's very easy to get mated in positions like this. So far, I really like what my opponent is doing. Maybe I have to start like returning material here, but even if I return material, I still am not guaranteed to like finish development properly, which is suboptimal. Favorite Regina song? Huh. I can't choose one. It's impossible, I think, to choose one. There are so many great songs. Actually, I'm lying. I think I know which one. Like, if I absolutely have to choose only one, it will be Laughing with. which I guess will not be any, everybody's choice, but for me, I always really, really like that song. Uh, my opponent should not have given me an option to trade so many light pieces. I'm now sort of completely safe. There's no mating attack on the king side, and the structure. My bishop is kind of better than his bishop because his bishop is very restricted by his own pawns. So I can definitely, like, every single endgame will be very good for me. I think what he's doing here is actually very sensible because it makes a great deal of sense for white here to try and not let me get any kind of endgames. I did not anticipate that, and I probably should have played uh, more specifically against that idea. Yeah, the first time out definitely didn't take, yeah. So we'll have to figure out some other ways of dealing with this stuff. Am I getting mated here? It's very possible I'm getting... Hang on a second, I can take on d2. Okay. That was... Bishop h6 was very strong instead of this. Borderline winning, actually, but now I'm doing quite well. No, I finished that a long time ago, Randall. I'm still listening to my Master and Commander books, and I promised Rhinestone I will start on the Mirror and the Light, so I will, but I don't know when. You obviously can't go back on the promise given to Rhinestone. That's not a thing. What do you think of the race for the youngest GM? Healthy for game interest or degrading GM title? I don't think it's degrading the GM title in or on its own. But I do think the concerns are not entirely unfounded either. But it definitely generates a lot of interest, which very possibly would not have been there. So hard to be too unhappy about it. Do you still play cricket? I have never really played cricket. I still watch cricket, definitely, but playing cricket in Russia is quite challenging. He is almost in the England ODI team given recent developments. Yeah, I'm on the periphery, just outside of selection parameters, I think. Just barely outside. I don't know, I probably should have taken on c3, and my opponent continues kind of tempting me to take on c3 here, and but it's just so difficult for me to... Yeah, there's definitely a video, please don't watch it. It's horrible. Like, seriously, don't watch that video. I shouldn't have said that, right? Now this video will hit like hundreds of views in the next 5 minutes or something, but it truly is horrible. I was not born to be a cricket player. That's a move I did not consider. I think I'll play bishop a6 and then we will... What's this? Peter not playing BGs? Yeah. I actually kind of sort of considered doing something along those lines later, but I'm really kind of all talked out for today. I had a 2 hour Skype conversation prior to this Banter session, so I don't think I will have the voice to do anything after this is finished. What is a recent or past chess book that you've read that you enjoyed? I did not blunder the fork, by the way. I have the counter attack against the g2 pawn. Yeah, exactly. This was not a blunder. I enjoyed a lot of chess books as a kid. Um, I mean, some of the most obvious favorites would be the Zurich. I blundered a draw. Will my opponent see it? Rook takes b2. Rook takes b2 wins, maybe even. No, it doesn't win, but it's a draw. I could have done almost anything else, and instead I did this. And this is now, if my opponent doesn't panic, rook takes b2 gives a perpetual with knight f8 check. Like the 1953 interzonal in Zurich obviously is a fantastic fantastic book. The first book I sort of read through and through was actually, yeah, I was kind of worried my opponent will just resign here, when as a matter of fact rook takes b2 is just an immediate draw. It's kind of upsetting. It feels like I swindled my opponent here, but really I didn't. It's people should stop trusting me when I play tactics. I make mistakes in tactical calculations all the time on this stream, and people still trust me somehow. Yeah, but I can. That line you typed, Plutarch, is absolutely correct. But after rook takes b2, I can start with queen e3 check before I take the queen, and then my queen is far away from any kind of attack from the knight on f8. Whoops, that's a bit of a no-no. Sorry about that. And yeah, I apologize to that person, but I am really not supposed to accept non-premium challenges. That was a bit of a misclick. Has Peter written any chess books? No, I've done a couple of courses. I think I've done 4 courses in total on Chess24, and I've done this new Grunfeld course for Chessable, but I've not done any, paper books of any kind. I don't actually have a repertoire against the King's Indian. I play random bullshit. In today's selection of random bullshit, we shall play, drumroll, knight of 3 h3, without knowing any theory. I think I'm supposed to play bishop b3 here. My understanding of this line is basically entirely revolves around the great number of games I've watched Evgeny Tomashevsky win against very, very strong opposition. I think in the early to mid to the 2010s. The line, I think in many people's minds, he did not invent it as such, but it kind of became very heavily associated with the name of Evgeny Tomashevsky, because he had staggeringly good results in this line against extremely, extremely strong players. But just watching other people play this position is not going to be enough to understand how to play it. Yeah, this is one of the positions you are, I think, absolutely not supposed to be getting with black, because now your bishop on g7 is completely dead. What is g5? G5 is specifically played with the intention of locking down the bishop on g7. And yeah, black is now Black is now kind of stuck, and the question is, will I be able to open enough files everywhere to, make significant progress? But white is definitely better here. I'm not sure how to proceed though. If black just does nothing, I mean, I'm castling queenside. The first and the most obvious option is to try and open something on the king side with h5. If it becomes an endgame, yeah, exactly like so, then we will definitely switch to the queen side. I think I'm supposed to trade. I don't think I'm supposed to avoid this trade. I think it's a good trade for me. Yeah, king comes to d3, and then we start thinking about what we can open. I'm also kind of wondering if I should be looking for a knight trade, because I think I can offer a knight trade with knight b5 at almost any time. This I would never really play sort of, what's the word, voluntarily, because I think giving me the d5 square is in most cases going to end poorly for black. Yeah, I mean, I'm not claiming he did invent it, but he sort of brought it back, and he, at some point, I think there was a Grand Prix he won, maybe in Tbilisi, where player after player with the black pieces was trying to kind of prove that this is nothing very much, and player after player lost. I think he beat like Grishuk and some other extremely strong players in that tournament. And like all of them decided that they needed to challenge his understanding of this line, and none of them survived. He went on a really, really impressive run in this opening. I think opening the H file is always going to be useful. I'm sort of not doing this particularly cleanly, but it should be good enough. Knight on f3 is a good piece, and now we, having opened the H file so that my opponent now needs to kind of consistently watch out for those threats, I will start digging around on the queen side looking to open more files. Is knight takes d5 a threat? Knight e6, knight d4 is sort of an idea, but I think we can ignore that for now. Knight takes d5 I assumed wasn't really all that great. I mean, I can take with the e-pawn. I'm pretty sure my opponent will play e5, e4 check, but I don't think it's that great, because the king will return back to d... Yeah, I mean, if you don't play e4 check, you are completely lost here. You absolutely have to. This is just sort of perhaps lack of appreciation of just how poor this position is for black if you don't generate immediate counterplay. I don't know if before immediately is the right way to go, but I'm pretty sure it's good enough. I could also, instead of king e4, could have played knight d2 and then knight e4. Maybe that was also quite strong, maybe even stronger than what I'm doing. Yeah, I probably could have done this in a more convincing fashion, but this is still really kind of really horrible for black. As long as I don't blunder anything stupid. So let's make sure we don't blunder anything stupid. Yeah, I've allowed... Bishop c5 should have been played on the previous move. It was a much better attempt, I think. But I can still take on e5. I kind of botched the conversion there. I could have been much, much cleaner with the conversion, but you get the general idea. Do I have any games against Ulf? I think I made a couple of draws against Ulf towards the end of his career. By the time I started playing in tournaments with Ulf, he was much, much more interested in analyzing after the game rather than playing itself. A very, very normal sight would be, Ulfi making like a 15-move draw and then analyzing this and every other game of the round for sort of the rest of the round, for as long as it took. Queen e7 is a kind of a funny move here. I mean, I will just switch back to the main lines. No, I never played Tal. I only saw him, uh, quote unquote, live once in my life in '92. Very, very close to the time of his death. I think maybe some month before he died. I think my opponent has mixed up some move orders here. I feel like this is um, not exactly how you're supposed to play this line. Although I'm not like at all convinced by my stuff either. I think he was there as a guest. I'm not sure. It was during the Alekhine Memorial. I was playing in the Open. Obviously, I wasn't anywhere near strong enough to play in the main event. Uh, and I mean, you can look it up. The main event was won by Boris Gelfand, I think, Moscow '92, and I don't think Misha played in it, but I could be wrong. How did it feel to the first time I beat Kasparov? It felt sort of beyond belief. It was a very, very strange feeling, considering how much of a hero of mine he was sort of throughout my childhood, and growing up I had no bigger heroes than Gary, chess wise. Are you now living in the Caribbean? No, the flag is a remnant from the um, that weird Halloween tournament that was held on Chess 24, where they gave us all new usernames so that people wouldn't immediately realize who is playing. But then when I started checking it out, I realized they gave us new usernames, but they did not give us new flags or new birthdays or any of that stuff. So I went into my profile and changed all of that stuff manually, including changing the flag to St. Kitts and Nevis. We are slowly getting there. This is now a very, very poor endgame for black, of course, because none of the pieces really move. And I can take sort of as slow of an approach as I want, because really everything is absolutely stalemated. And now we can finally pick up the A-pawn and go from there. No, that's not exactly the same line. I think Magnus is goat. I'm pretty sure it's. I mean, it's the same Scotch, but I don't think it's exactly the same line. I kind of want to win more than just this piece, but I mean, it's enough. I don't really need to be all that fancy here. Hello, Mr. Adiban. Ah, yeah. Goodbye, Mr. Adiban. Um, I don't really know Landau 7, 007. I haven't been to Elista in ages. I assume there is still some residual chess support, but I don't know if it's anywhere near the levels it was in in its sort of heyday. This is extremely, extremely bad for black, I'm pretty sure. You don't have to worry about the pawn on c3. You can, yeah, like this is a mistake. It's not a bad move, but it's a move that, gives me hope because my opponent decided to protect something that did not need protecting. It's sort of both, Paul Vista. It's definitely, a lot of top level chess is very, very heavily revolves around pattern recognition. But I've not played these particular games before. None of the games I've played so far today have been, you know, carbon copies of something I've seen or something I played. They're all somewhat independent, but still a lot, and a very, very great deal of it comes down to pattern recognition. I think I'm supposed to play c4 and b5 here because I'm not really making too much progress in the center, and it makes sense to gain as much space as I can on the queen side, and then perhaps just start preparing for and castling queen side. This is a kind of a French structure where if white already starts, pushing for some kind of a 4 or 5 break, it's quite dangerous for black. But as you see in this position, white is very, very far away from being able to play even f2, f4, let alone f4, f5. So it feels like my play on the queen side should be faster. How are you able to remember so many past games? It comes from, it's one of those questions which don't really have, any kind of a magical answer. It's just something that comes with experience. And I think having good memory for things like numbers and structures and just having a good memory in general, it definitely is something that nature selects for when it chooses who will and who will not become a good chess player. My opponent placed his their pieces in such a way that I am now suddenly in the possession of this extremely dangerous passer on the A file, which is not normal, but I'm using what is given to me. Actually, I'm kind of unhappy about this because I completely missed knight c1. No, it's not a carbon copy of a position. It's like a constellation of pieces can be, placed in a certain way, or pawn structures in particular do happen time and time again. So you do get kind of intimately acquainted with certain pawn structures when you play certain openings. Yeah, this is not as clear as I thought it would be, but at some point I will start making progress. I don't know why I've already not played queen b2 or queen b1. I think it probably was quite decent for a number of moves already. Yeah, time to go in. Definitely time to go in and start collecting. I blundered rook takes f7. I don't know if my opponent sees... It's actually not a blunder because in the end the rook on b8 is not hanging. So it's all good. Rook f7, yeah, this doesn't create any significant threats, but rook f7 was interesting and would have been quite challenging if not for the fact that I can take and then go king 8, king d7. Can you remember the notation of the first game in this Banter Blitz? If you give me like the first couple of moves, because they all sort of blend together in my mind, but if you like tell me the opening or tell me the first two moves, I will probably be able to tell you the entire game. I will still be able to tell you the entire game maybe 2 days from now. A week from now, it will become a bit of a problem. And when I was 20, it wouldn't have been a problem maybe half a year from today. And the first time I noticed that remembering my own games is now a bit of a challenge was an extremely, extremely sad day. I still remember the shock when I realized that. I think I can maybe even remember exactly how it happened. I was supposed to give some kind of a lecture in the Pioneer's Palace, not the Pioneer's House, not the district one, the central one in the center of town, the one where all the most gifted kids normally went to. They invited me to give a lecture on a recent tournament that concluded, and they said, "Well, you can show some of your games." And I got there. I kind of knew what I was going to. Yeah, that one I probably will be able to remember the entirety of Kramnik Student. Yeah, I think I remember that game. Uh, so I got there. I didn't take any notes. I didn't bring anything, or I felt like why would I need any kind of hardware with me? And then I realized I have I have a very clear picture in my mind of what happened in the game, like the strategic ideas and the key variations I wanted to say, I wanted to show to the kids. But like the intricate move orders in the opening, for instance, and some maneuvering phases towards the end of the game, I wasn't entirely sure I will show them correctly, so I had to look it up, and that was just such a sad moment. Sorry, Hardcastle, but we can't wait. Apologies if you're not here. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, at least in part, just natural talent. Do you feel if someone is cheating using it? I mean, you do get that impression sometimes when, in particular, let's say you're playing against somebody you have never uh, seen before, and you're like, what is the answer here? Bishop b3 just transposes to normal theory. F4 transposes to normal theory. Bishop b2 is kind of boring, transposes to normal theory. I think it's supposed to be bishop g5 if I want to play, you know, something that is not classical Najdorf. I mean, screw it. We can just play bishop b3. I don't care. So sometimes, like, if you play against somebody you've never really met before and, who is rated something low-ish on the website, I don't particularly want to assign a range to low-ish, but uh, let's say significantly lower than what, let's say, I am rated. And you notice that moves all come at pretty much exactly the same speed, and they're all extremely solid. And there's like a significant lack of any kind of inaccuracies. It does kind of start ringing alarm bells in your head. Do you play blindfold games? I occasionally I gave a couple of blindfold simuls on my own Twitch channel. It's fun, but it's also extremely difficult. In early June, I gave an over the board, so to speak, blindfold simul in Moscow. It was 7 boards, and it was basically giving a blindfold simul on 7 boards felt like playing a normal game. It was not really much more difficult than playing with pieces on. It's much, much simpler than giving a blindfold simul on the website because your games are ordered and the moves come in this specific order. So it's much, much easier to keep the positions in mind. Because when you give a blindfold simul on the website, you make a move and then a random position pops up where somebody played a move against you. And you have to memorize usernames. And that for me is a lot more difficult. Yeah, no issues at all, Hardcastle. I'm kind of suffering here because I don't quite understand how I'm supposed to proceed in this position. So yeah, like that was an interesting experience because I've for a while I've wanted to give a blindfold simul live just to see how many boards I can manage. I still don't really know the answer to that, but I know it's much higher than 7. I'm pretty sure even 10 wouldn't have been a problem. Somewhere around, let's say between 12 and 15, I guess, I would have to start uh, working a lot harder. This is an interesting move. I did not expect this, and yeah, this is a very, very fun position to play and analyze, but I've left myself with unbelievably little time, which will probably result in me losing. Yeah, e takes d4 was completely fine, but at least there I had a reply prepared. That was like the biggest issue was that in a position like this, you really want your opponent to be making the moves you have a immediate answer for, because otherwise there's just so much stuff you want to calculate that it's extremely difficult to manage time properly. It takes d4, I just have positional compensation. There is no refutation, it's completely fine. You can take and play king d8 after recapture. But I do get active pieces, the black pieces are kind of disconnected. I play rook he1, it's difficult to bring the bishop f8 into the game, and so on. Yeah, this is quite sensible, but this is not what I was worried about the most. I think here, is this an increment game? If it's not an increment game, I will still lose. If there is any kind of increment, I might be completely fine now. Yeah, like blindfold simuls on a significant amount of boards are still like magic, absolutely magic. But as I mentioned, something like, I don't know, 7 to 10 to 12 boards is very, very manageable for somebody who, I don't know, but yeah. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, Timur Gareyev's record is absolutely unbelievable to me. I really don't know how he managed what he managed there. Um, yeah, most of us are on at least one shot by now, Zutra. Hmm. Yeah, well played, RCPLP. I'm pretty sure you were doing very, very well somewhere around there. And I think your mistake was something I could have done myself, honestly. You tried, instead of accepting sacrifices, you tried being the person who sacrifices material yourself. And I think in your spot, you were actually supposed to take those pieces and win. I don't think they play g4 in this position. I'm not entirely sure why though. But yeah, it shouldn't be great. I guess we can just go b5. I can play h6 as well. Have you ever played against it? No, I'm from a very, very different generation. It's really, really hot in the room I'm in. I have a fan on, but I'm still kind of barely managing. No, but even without rook h5, I think you already left a lot on the table. I think your position was even better before that. I don't think knight c3 check is the best move in that position, for instance. I didn't check with any engines, so maybe I'm wrong, but my feeling during the game at least was that you could have just started taking material. Yeah, I think from the three available right now, you are supposed to take the Sputnik. But I am not a doctor, and I would feel kind of uncomfortable if people started taking medical advice from me. This is a very, very annoying position. I constantly keep on getting in these lines, and yet I keep on playing in exactly the same way, time and time again, and then hating life with a passion. Drinking water. There used to be ice in it, but there's doesn't really feel like there's any ice left. Hmm. Yeah, this is just so bad. More or less anything else would have been better against the system that my opponent is playing. Yeah, this at least gives me some shot because I think I will be able to play before and at least open some files. Would knight c4 be a bad move? The thing about knight c4 is that white takes on c4, and then you find it extremely, extremely difficult to generate any kind of counterplay at all. Because the bishop on d4 just cannot be challenged by anything. And even playing bishop b7 and castling becomes unbelievably difficult. As you can see, this is sort of the best case scenario. Obviously, my opponent maybe shouldn't have allowed me this much, but by playing knight c6, I'm losing more time, but I am preparing at least for the eventuality of white castling queenside, because now I can, yeah, do exactly the kinds of things that you're watching me doing, opening files and sort of trying to get to the king. Bishop d3 is a good move. I could have played maybe slightly more precisely. I missed bishop d3 completely. I still like my position, but it's a lot trickier than I anticipated. Which coach or player have you enjoyed working with the most? In terms of my personal coaches, Andrei Lukin has done absolutely like the most of anybody I ever worked with, and I am going to be eternally grateful to him for all the help he's given me over the years. As for players, I've done some session work with Vishy. I've done a decent amount of work some time ago, obviously, but I've done a decent amount of work for Vladi, obviously, and yeah, they both are unbelievable. And I've had some occasion recently to analyze chess with Gary, and that always feels like such a privilege. I'm playing against the winner of Mats Anderson against, I think, a Latin American player I have not seen the name of, I think, until the World Cup. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's all perfectly. I mean, the information has been published for um, quite some time, so it's not difficult to find the entire tree and take a look at pairings. Pairings are not secret for the World Cup. Of course, I knew Yuri. I I never worked with him like one on one, but I've played for the Russian teams he coached, and I played Yuri himself in one game in 1991. He beat me like a drum. He was a very good player before he turned to coaching, and he was a very nice, a very interesting man. It's a huge, big loss for Russian chess and I think chess in general. It's kind of tragic. Not kind of, it is tragic. I mean, he was way, way too young to even, it doesn't really feel entirely real that he's gone. He was, such a constant fixture in in the Russian chess scene. It's, you have to go a long, long way back to, recall a time when he wasn't involved with the national team in some capacity, and obviously before that he coached Kasparov, so we all knew him as Gary's second. If once I started playing in the same tournaments as Gary, he was always there. Also, a constant constant presence in all those tournaments. Yeah, I think it was COVID. Yeah, we get to actually demonstrate some very nice, like old school Reti ideas with Queen A1 here. It still doesn't give me all that much, but it's a pleasant edge because the bishop on b7 is going to be much more passive than the bishop on g2 after these two are traded. But yeah, if you should actually go read Gary's tribute because Gary knew him better than most people. I don't like my capture on g7. I wanted to play b4 and then knight d4, knight b3, knight c5, but it's way too slow. But I'm kind of committed now. Alapin is good for uh, any level, really. There's nothing wrong with the Alapin, but I personally like. I have a very serious dislike of the Alapin, but it comes from me. Like I never played it with white, but I did play against players who played against me as white, and these days it is not necessarily true at all. But in the olden days, if you saw that somebody was playing the Alapin, it was, yeah, exactly. It was almost exclusively played with the intention of playing very, very pronouncedly and sort of very um, single mindedly for a draw and not for a win at all. And as a Sicilian player, this is something you really, really hate because you're playing this opening quite clearly to try and get some kind of a sharp, disbalanced position, and then somebody will play the Alepin against you, and they will know a lot of theory there as well. So they will know, all the best ways to trade pieces and all the best ways to not really play a game. You're welcome, Manuel. But these days, when you see Alepin players, like, but people definitely play c3 against a Sicilian to play for a win. Really losing my voice here. kind of struggling to talk, which is very unfortunate. You missed a free rook. Did I? Don't think I did. This is not the most exciting line of the Grunfeld ever, but what to do? I don't actually speak German. I'm playing the World Cup. The World Cup starts in a couple of days' time. I'm flying on Tuesday. I'm starting from round two, so I'm not going to be playing in round one. Round one starts even earlier than that, but flying on Tuesday. Do you think Magnus will complete in the candidates if he loses in the World Championship cycle? I don't know. With him, it's a legitimate question that I don't know the answer to. Queen d2 actually wins the piece back here. I only get, yeah, like I get to play a very nice endgame, but it's nothing special, unfortunately. Uh, nope, I haven't. Zotra. Do organizers of tournaments help with visa issues? Yeah, I think in most cases you can ask organizers for visa support, and they will provide you with invitations, or in some cases they will provide you even with consular help, depending on sort of how big of an issue you're having. I probably should have played knight a5 because I don't think I should be allowing a4, a5. It's actually a pretty big mistake what I just did. I only speak Russian and English. Um, I might end up learning some more, but for now I only speak those two. Yeah, I mean, in particular for I think well, players from Soviet Union and then Russia, visa issues are a constant part of life, which maybe players from the Western countries don't really appreciate so much. And I ended up getting quite good at, getting visas and filling in forms and all that. I probably should have taken on b5. I keep on not taking on b5 in this position, which is a mistake, I think. But yeah, winning this will not be straightforward at all, or maybe not even possible, honestly. Like, my king is not on c5. My king is nowhere near c5, and yeah, this is going to be a problem. I don't like king f1, though. I think king f1 might be a mistake. The king, like, you never ever cut yourself off uh, at the bottom rank, because this is what happens. I think king f3 was making a reasonably comfortable draw actually in that position. Probably one or two more and I'm done for today, because really I'm kind of struggling to speak and I need to find a darkened room somewhere and just lie down. What type of questions are the most interesting to answer? I like offbeat questions. I like questions on unusual topics. I like sort of original, funny questions. Although as often is the case, like if you try to be funny on purpose, you probably will fail, because like trying to think of a specifically funny question is probably one of the safest ways of asking a very, very unfunny one. Which line are we talking about, Fazbak? Yeah, yeah, c takes d5 is a mistake. Yeah, for sure. I said so live during the game. What's the funniest moment in chess? It's so difficult to, you know, as I said, like nominating funny things on demand is one of the things I really, really dislike in all kinds of situations. Did you watch India versus New Zealand cricket final? I missed most of it. I ended up sort of following it on the app without really watching the video. I was very sad about it. But I think I was doing something on every single day of the match, which was very, very far from ideal, because I would dearly love to watch that. It was such a fantastic game as well. I haven't tried it much, but I have tried the cloud version. I haven't even installed it on my machine yet, but since I'm using the cloud engines vast majority of the time anyway, it doesn't seem relevant. Are you sometimes angry at your opponent, not just yourself, after you lose? Very, very rarely. I think um, like there needs to be some very specific circumstances for this to even be, a chance. Like if somebody, I don't know, if I play a blitz tournament and my opponent clearly on purpose just like bangs the clock from move one, or does some other stuff that you know is clearly uh, aimed at uh, sort of not letting you play properly. But that stuff doesn't really happen very much at the top level at all. We're slightly better here, not by much, but we definitely are slightly better. Pick up the club so you can't press it. Yeah, I mean this stuff doesn't really happen very much outside of like park hustles, right? And I don't really interact with park hustlers on a day-to-day basis. When was the last time you made an illegal move? That's actually a funny story. Talk about, telling funny stories. Now you ask me a question. I have a funny story to tell on this topic, because you've prompted it. During the World Cup in Tbilisi, I was playing. I can't remember exactly which round that was, but I was playing against uh, Victor Erdos, and in a previous round, I think specifically in his match, there was an incident where somebody, I think, queened the pawn incorrectly by like finishing the move with the pawn on the back rank without actually replacing it with a queen. And before we started our own game, the arbiters actually decided, since this is a World Cup, but since people clearly don't know the rules properly, let's give a speech. So the arbiters gave a long speech on exactly how you're supposed to queen. And then we were playing a game, and we were playing an extremely messy, extremely complicated game, some kind of an English opening, I think. And I think I was worse, and then I was better, and then it became unclear. And then suddenly I outcalculated Victor, and I was completely winning. And I got the pawn to e7, and there was a rook on f8. And I could take EF and like place any piece there, and he would instantly reply by playing like rook somewhere takes a fate in response. So basically, we all knew what the next two moves were going to be, uh, and I played e7 takes a fate, left the pawn there, and pressed the clock. And he looked at me in like absolute shock and said, "But that's an illegal move." And we kind of both, yeah, why am I doing this? This is the third time today. I can't seem to shake this weird habit today of accepting non premiums. Well, he called an arbiter and they gave him 2 minutes. But unfortunately for him, the position was so bad that it didn't really matter. I mean, he did exactly the right thing. Absolutely, he absolutely like had to stop the clock and it had to be resolved. But luckily for me, it was a rapid game and not a blitz game. In a blitz game, I would have just lost the game on the spot. Um, but in a rapid game, your opponent just gets a couple of minutes. This is probably the last one. No, it never stays a pawn, but depending on how fast the time control is, you do get penalized. Okay. I mean, sure. I'm not certain what I'm doing is good, but it's a pawn, so I will just like proceed from here somehow. This is also probably a very bad move, but I kind of talked myself into it. Would you play a thematic similar exhibition, let's say Grunfeld only to practice a chessable course? I've done something similar once on my own stream on Twitch, but not since. I'm not against the idea, but it feels like, those types of things require work to set up. Yeah, like Queen B8 was just such a horrible move. Like really, really horrible. Queen D6 was fine. I kind of knew I wasn't supposed to play Queen B8, and then I played it anyway. I am now talking about being mad at your opponent. I'm not mad at my opponent, but I'm definitely am very mad at myself now. Yeah, this is quite clever because if I play Queen D7, Bishop B5 wins a lot of material. Yeah, I'm being kind of. I don't know if outplayed is the right word here because it's largely self-inflicted, but I am being kind of punished for my indiscretions here. That's for sure. No particular timeline, no, annoying dog. I am suddenly and kind of shockingly, even for myself, I have a very full schedule all of a sudden. Um, Full of things that really cannot be postponed. So, and Chessable has been, the guys have been extremely, extremely understanding with the first part, and they're also extremely, extremely understanding with the second part as well. 94 was a bit of a mistake. I think my opponent probably missed the fact that I can do this. And I'm now doing quite well. I've been going to the gym consistently for the past 3 or 4 years, and it doesn't really show very much. But I am, One thing that I did do is it made my back issues a lot less pronounced. One of the best decisions I've taken in the past, I don't know how many long, how I don't know how long, was the decision to start taking like fitness and gym seriously. I have a trainer and all that. Like, definitely more progress could have been made, but some progress has been made. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. There will be did they 8 not hang? I am threatening Queen takes b2 mate right now, so it's not really hanging all that much. There will be one more of these tomorrow. So those of you who did not get a game today, you might get a game tomorrow, because I do try to play new usernames every time I play. Obviously, I have done enough of these bunters on Chess24 that I can't possibly remember every single username, but I do try to play people I don't remember having played before. So that sort of not getting a game today slightly improves your chances for tomorrow. See you then, and yeah, thanks for watching.